looks really bright.
I feel like an angel up here. Is it? Okay. All right, well, thank you guys for coming. My name is Amanda Rosen, and I've been homeschooling for 17 years. This will be our 17th year of homeschooling. I have 4 boys from ages 8 to 23. So we started this journey when my oldest son was about 7 years old. And prior to that, I was working full-time, going to school full-time. I was a single mom until I met my husband, so I never thought about homeschooling. That just wasn't even in my thought process. But once I got married, my husband had some friends who were homeschooling their daughters, and it just kind of piqued my interest. Like, what's that, you know? And then God just really orchestrated everything to where I was able to quit my job and stay home with my son. And I thought, why am I staying home while he goes to school? Like, you know, I can do what his friends do too. And I just wanted that extra time with my son, because I spent the first 6 or so years of his life just working my butt off and never really seeing him. So that was one of my main reasons that I wanted to start homeschooling. And back then, I lived in Ohio, in the country, and when I went to the principal and took my son out of 2nd grade, they actually called me in for a special meeting because back then nobody really homeschooled, so I did it before it was cool, because now I think it's really cool. But back then it was more unheard of, maybe because social media wasn't such a big thing. But so I got called into the principal's office and he's like, what have we done wrong? And so I had to explain to him, your school is amazing, but the Lord is leading me to homeschool my son, because that's ultimately what it came down to. Like, the Lord orchestrated everything for me to be able to do that. So we moved to Kentucky actually during the first year of homeschooling my son, we ended up moving to Kentucky. So laws are different in every state. So I had to learn Kentucky laws, which actually at the time were much easier than Ohio laws. So, and for anyone who doesn't know, Ohio is actually changing their laws to make it easier, praise God, for homeschooling in Ohio, because you used to have to do an assessment, but now you do not. You know what, I'd like to just pray right now if I can. Sorry I didn't start with that. But Father God, I just thank you for this opportunity, Lord, to share what you've put inside of me to help others, God. I pray that your words flow from my mouth, God, that you will give everyone the exact things that they need. Jesus, just use me as a tool today, God. I just thank you, God, for what you're going to do in these people's lives, God. I pray for anyone who is trying to figure out whether they should homeschool or however they should educate their kids, God, that you give them the wisdom, Lord, and that you just put in their hearts what you want them to do, God, that they will be led by you, Jesus, because it's a really huge decision, Lord, that is just, it could change their child's life, God. So I just pray that you give each person wisdom, be with them, Lord. I pray that they never question it, God. You give them peace on their journey, Lord. Calm their anxious hearts, God. Whatever path they choose, Jesus, I just pray that you are in their midst, Lord, and you guide them, Jesus. I thank you, God, for just using me. We praise your mighty name. Amen.
Amen.
So moving to Kentucky, I also had a newborn here in Kentucky. I didn't have any family or anything, so it was quite a, crazy roller coaster ride. I was actually pregnant when we moved to Kentucky, and I was just starting homeschool, had no family here, but the Lord just worked everything out. I wish I could tell you all that, but that's for another time. So I'm not gonna lie, what I really want to help people out with, if you choose to homeschool, is to not make the mistakes that I made. And don't go through some of these times that I went through. It was just tough to, at first I really loved it. This is great, I get all this time with my son, and guess what curriculum I chose? I chose what my husband's friends had, because that's all I knew at the time. Okay, that works for them, I'm gonna use that, cool. But I quickly learned that whatever works for one family, or even different children within your family, doesn't work for each child and each family. So it became really frustrating for me, and you would find me mimicking a public school. I think that for a lot of people, that's one of the biggest mistakes, especially starting out as homeschoolers. If it's all you've ever known, it's what you're likely gonna do. But then, you gotta step back and think, why am I doing this? If you pulled your kid out of a public school, or you decide to homeschool them, there are reasons you did that. So why are you going back to doing things the way it's always been done? You gotta think, why am I doing this? So because I mimicked public schools, I had I didn't have a lot of space in my little home, so I set up a homeschool room right in my living room. I had the American flag, we did that. I tried to mimic art classes, music classes, PE, I had the schedule, and honestly, all I was doing was wearing myself out, and my son too. But I thought we gotta try to keep it familiar to him, because remember, I pulled him out of school, and he was thriving in school. So I'm trying to just keep it the way he's familiar with. But that ended with me throwing books across the room. I'm not gonna lie. Come on. It was horrible. It was horrible. I became an angry mother because I tried to mimic public school. That's what it boiled down to. And I'm not gonna say that that doesn't work for everybody. My neighbors, they are seasoned homeschoolers, and it seems to be working for them. They have the whole setup, and it's going well for them. But that's something also that I like to share with everybody, that each family is different. You have to find what works for you and not compare. Don't compare to public school, private school, other homeschoolers, your neighbor, because God's putting you on a journey that's meant just for your family. And if you ignore that path that He's put you on, what He's put in your heart, it could be destructive for your children. So now I did graduate my son, who is now 23 years old. I want to say right away, I don't specialize in high school and college, even though I've been there, done that, because my oldest son made it really simple for us. He had no desire to ever go to college, and I don't force my children to. I'm not going to make them spend thousands of dollars on something that they have no desire to do. I want them to figure out their own path, and I support whatever that is. So he made it easy for us. To be honest, I never did a transcript. I still haven't. My second oldest son, he's 15. He also has no desire. I keep asking him, you might. He doesn't. So I'm just okay, well, we will burn that bridge when we get there. I don't worry about it right now. So also with getting a driver's license, my oldest son had no desire to drive until he was 19 years old. So there are things that you have to have if you're, I believe, 17 or younger, maybe 18 in Kentucky, that we didn't have to worry about. So honestly, I'm not an expert in high school or college homeschooling, but we have been there, done that, and it turned out just fine. I want you to know for that aspect of it, we issued my son his high school diploma. You do that. As a homeschooler, you are considered a private school in Kentucky, and you have all authority to say that your child has graduated. And a lot of people, they think, oh, they need to get a GED. That is not true at all. And some people even frown on GEDs, so I would caution people to do their research with that, because what I have found is that a lot of businesses, they look highly on homeschoolers and appreciate that. You know, a lot of homeschoolers are self-driven, they're unique, and they're hard workers, a lot of them. So my oldest son, he got a job right off the bat without any problem at all. He's now the manager at Pi 5 at the mall. He's been doing that for a while. So, like I said, he made it really easy. So that is our homeschool journey in a nutshell. So I was going to ask, who here has homeschooled before at all? Anybody? Little bit? Officially? Unofficially? Okay. So y'all are pretty new at this. So that's great, because that's what I love. That's what I love helping with. I was going to go over a few pros and cons of homeschooling. Actually, I have a lot of pros, because I've just learned that homeschooling is great. But there are some things that people might consider negative aspects of homeschooling, and I just want to make sure you're aware of that in case it could impact your decision. This also doesn't apply to me because none of my 4 boys really got involved in sports, but I'm thankful. I don't like the crazy schedule. However, if your children do want to participate in school sports, often in Kentucky, it's not allowed. It is on a school by school decision-making process. Like, it's up to each individual school, and it even varies sometimes from like middle school to high school. So you would have to just go to the school in your district and see if they would allow you to participate in any of their extracurricular activities like sports. So again, for me, that's not a big deal, but to some people that could be a deal breaker if their kid really, you know, has a huge interest in sports. But there are plenty of, if you want your kid to participate, and it doesn't matter if it's a public school team, there are so many just resources out there. There's bands, there's homeschool bands, there's homeschool softball and basketball. Like, they can be on a team. That's not a problem. So that would be great if your kid wants to play sports. Another con, I was talking to my 23-year-old and I was asking him, what are some negative things about homeschooling? Because honestly, I can't think of many at this point. Like, I just love it, and I can see so many positive things about homeschooling. But one thing that you need to think about through my adult son's eyes, his life experience, is he lived a very sheltered life. And I think a lot of us parents as Christians, we want to shelter our children, from the world. And because he was homeschooled, it's not that he wasn't socialized. He got plenty of socialization, but when my son went out into the world and got on his own, he was very shocked, like culture shocked, really. The bullying, the harassment, the things that take place as an adult, the things we face as an adult. So I would just think about that as your children grow up, like, talk to them. I guess I didn't talk to him enough about it. Like, it's one thing, it's great to shelter them, but I would talk to your children as they are maturing, and let them at least just make them aware that, hey, this world is crazy. Like, you know, this is what you may experience when you go out there and get a job. Everybody's not going to be like you. So that would be, please keep that in mind. Like, I just feel so bad because he was just so culture shocked. But again, he's doing great. He's doing great. So he got through that. Another negative aspect is, honestly, I didn't have this problem when I started homeschooling all these years ago, but there are actually too many choices. I would consider that a negative, like just having to sift through everything, all the curriculum, all the activities, and you know, people think there's nothing for homeschoolers. That's because they don't. Just look, just open your eyes, just look. It's out there. There's too many choices, but you can really get caught up in trying to figure it all out, and it can be very stressful. So the only other thing I really thought of is that it can get expensive, but it's honestly as cheap or expensive as you make it, because I have resources. You can homeschool absolutely for free if you want to go that route, but it can be over, you know, thousands of dollars per child if you want to go that route too. So now we'll talk about the things that I see as pros about homeschooling. And one of my favorite things that I realize, you know, people will say, well, who are you? Like, do you have a degree? Like, why are you teaching your children? You might face this from family or something, but what I've learned is that no one knows my child better than I do. No one knows your children better than you do. And God, it's like built in, like it's built in your family. You already know what they need. God knows, you know, what to give you, how to raise them. So it's just funny because when God called us to homeschooling, you know, when he calls you to something you never see, you can't see the future. But now that we have almost 17 years, just looking back, I'm just like, thank you, God. Like, I didn't know the extent of why he called us to homeschool. But my youngest son, who is now 8 years old, for most of his life so far, about from like toddlerhood to 6 years old, he was different. I took him to therapy. I thought something was wrong, honestly. I mean, I do believe something actually was wrong. He was very difficult to handle. He had behavior issues, and I'm like, where's this coming from? You know, I don't know. I cried so many tears because he was just so difficult to just even be around, if I'm honest. Like, it was hard, and it hurt that he was my last kid, and that's how I felt towards him. Like, I was actually bitter at times because I didn't understand like what's going on with my child. I mean, I'm raising him just like we were raised the rest of them. So my point here is that I just can't imagine sending him to public school. You know, God had already had me homeschooling for all these years, preparing me for Grayson, my last child. You know, the thought of sending him to a stranger and just thinking about what would they do when he misbehaved, you know, I couldn't handle those thoughts. But praise God, around 6 years old, it's like a switch was just flipped, and his behavior, he's amazing. Like, God did something in him, and I just think it just added to my testimony, you know. So the next thing is that you can teach your child in the way that works best for them. So what that means is, like, you can figure out how they learn and go from there. And I'm going to touch that more here in a couple minutes. But it's so great. Like, they're not tied to this is their curriculum. They're going to learn exactly the way everyone else is learning. And that's that. Like, you have no say. So another thing that's really cool, as we age, we kind of forget stuff. So you learn right along with your kids. I think it's just neat how much I've relearned, because, you know, when I was in school, well, this is another thing about public school, that you just kind of memorize things to take a test, and then you forget it. What's the point? So I'm learning things that I didn't even care to learn back then, because now I can teach my kids what I want to know too. So that's pretty cool. Also, the children, they will learn in a shorter time frame. So you get to go at your children's pace and not at the pace of the rest of their classmates. And this is really cool. We were just talking about, you know, it takes 10 minutes to do math. Yes, it's okay. It does. Because your child's not sitting around doing busy work, waiting on the rest of the kids, or, you know, you're going at your child's pace. So going back to my youngest child, Grayson, he's 8 years old. He doesn't fully know how to read yet. But you know what? I don't care. Because when he's 20, he'll be reading just fine, like when he needs to. So he's going at his own pace. And that is okay. It's just us who have to like get rid of that mindset. Oh my gosh, they're not reading at 4 or 5 years old. Whoever said they had to read at 4 or 5 years old? That's just how we've been conditioned. And it's heartbreaking, honestly, to put that pressure on a child that should be playing, in my opinion. Just be playing and enjoying life. Why would you take away their childhood by just forcing them to read? All that's doing, that I've learned, is just forcing them to hate learning. So that's another really awesome thing about homeschooling, is that you can instill a love of learning in your children. So if you give them that, that's like a gift that you give your children. If you instill in them the love for learning, it takes the limits off. You know, public school puts limits on them because this is how it is, that's what it's gonna be. But when they love to learn, it's just amazing what they're gonna do with their lives. You know, they'll start picking up books. They will learn how to read just because they have the freedom to look at a book whenever the book they want to look at. You know, take them to the library and let them just explore. That's my youngest boys, they are 8 and 10, and they just create and build and explore and imagine like all day long, all day long. I'll get some more of that too here in a minute. So one of the big pluses, as I've mentioned before, you get more time with your children. To me, it's a blessing. To me, it breaks my heart when people say they are so happy to be putting their kids on the cheese wagon. Bye. Like how heartbreaking. To me, it flies by so fast. So, and I know that now. I know that because my kids, my older ones are 15 and 23. Like, it's just blink. When they're about 12 years old, it becomes a blur. So just enjoying this time, this gift that you have with them, it's such a blessing. So I also love about homeschooling that you get to teach them whatever you want and however you choose to do so. There are some requirements in Kentucky that say you have to teach certain subjects, and it's just basic core subjects. But the good news is, if you choose, all these subjects are covered in living your life. Honestly, you can get all this with baking, playing, engineering with their blocks. That's what my kids love. They love to do that. I mean, you can even make a lesson out of jumping on the trampoline. Let's measure how high you went. Just, I love that. And then, you know, one huge thing for me now is that my kids are not being indoctrinated to believe things that I do not want them taught. I mean, it's in our faces enough, but to send them to a school right now, I know of schools right here in this area that their teacher says, I'm not Mrs. or Mr., I am they, them. Nope, not happening with my kid. So I mean, that's just to to me, it's an honor that I get to homeschool my kids and that they don't have to have that shoved down their face every time they go to an art class or whatever that is. Also, you know, as Christians, we can have Bible studies more often. And there are loads of Christian curriculum. If you want that sprinkled throughout your whole homeschooling, if you choose to do books, like, you know, that's great that you have that as a resource there. So one of my personal really favorite things about homeschooling is the freedom that I have to sleep in, wear my pajamas. You know, I schedule everything myself. I'm very careful about my schedule, protecting that time with my kids, and I mean, just protecting my sanity. I'm not a morning person. Guess what? I don't have to be. It's okay. But you know, I still have that like built-in guilt system that's like, you have to be up early and you have to do this or that. But it's like also part of the gift of homeschooling, if you're able to, that you can just slow down. And God has allowed me to have so much slow time these last few years that it's almost like, okay, God, I'm ready for something else. But, you know, my kids are still growing up, so I have that time in the morning to enjoy my devotionals and just peace, watch the birds, like slow down, because it's going to be gone so fast. You guys all have young kids, but it just goes so fast. So I would say enjoy the freedom, take vacations. I'm going on vacation next week, and public schools are back in session. So it's less crowded. I'm so excited. Like, that's my favorite time to take vacation. Everything's less crowded, and brings me to another very awesome thing about homeschooling is discounts. Did you think about that? So Dollywood actually has homeschool days. It's a great deal. Ripley attractions, they all have homeschool discounts. It's a wonderful way to take your kids on vacation and actually be able to afford a vacation with children. So that's just in Tennessee where we're going, but it's all over the place. If you just ask, do you have a homeschool discount? It's in a lot of places, and also bookstores. If you ask, do you have a teacher discount? They will often give you, it may be just like 10%, but hey, it's a discount. So that's something that's really awesome about being a homeschool teacher. I also like how there's less concern over bullying and school shootings and things. That it's just really heartbreaking that our children these days have to worry about those things, but I do feel a lot more protected in my own home. Anything can happen anywhere, but I just feel like I'm protecting my kids there. And this may come to a shock to a lot of people, but something that I view as a positive thing, is actually socialization. People will argue, you know, socialization is, what about that? Oh my gosh, it is not 1999 anymore. Like this, we don't have that problem anymore. Hello, spend a week with us. We don't have that problem. My kids have so much socialization, but it just still astonishes me how many people that don't homeschool think that we just lock our children up in the house all day and they don't get any interaction at all. So, you know, my kids have been to a birthday party about every week this summer. We've had that. Let's see. We have church, we have events, like there's so much. I actually, something I haven't shared yet, for those who don't know, I run a homeschool group on Facebook, and we have over 2,500 homeschoolers that are mostly in central Kentucky. So I don't think there's a socialization problem. It's dependent on you as a parent to make the effort. As long as you make the effort, your kids are going to be just fine. I think they'll be fine anyway. But I just don't understand, you know, if the people that badger homeschoolers about socialization. Like, again, we're not in the 50s. We don't need bullying. You know, we don't need this anymore. It's just like, I'm just saying that because my dad actually thought my kids need to be bullied to experience real life. And hey, maybe he was right, because my oldest son struggled a little bit. But no, I think they just need talk to more about what to expect when they do get out and start working and stuff on their own. Is it really socialization that public schoolers get sitting in a classroom all day, 8 hours a day, with the same age group, where they're told not to talk? I mean, they're getting less and less recess time and free time. They're told to be quiet. I've even heard that their lunches are shorter. It's just they're rushing these kids through. They don't have time to socialize, and they get in trouble for talking. So that's not socialization. If that's what socialization is, I don't want it for my kids. So the reality is, for homeschoolers, if you make the effort, they get to interact with just a wide variety of ages and cultures and backgrounds. You know, I have an older lady that comes in and teaches my son piano every week. They get that. My son goes to theater club, and he's there with, that's the cool thing about homeschool groups. They're not just like one age usually. The theater club that he attends, it's ages like 6 to 12. It's a variety of ages, so boys and girls. So he's getting that interaction. I just feel like it's far more than public schoolers get. So to me, socialization is a positive of homeschooling. It's really great. Our kids are more creative. As I've mentioned, like, that's all, my boys love to just run around. I'll be on the phone with my dad, and he'll be like, who do they have there? I was like, it's just them. They're just running around playing and imagining, and it's the coolest thing to see their imagination coming to life. But honestly, when you look at a lot of public school kids, and they're not all like this, there's some wonderful, I'm not putting down people who choose to go to public school. That's the route God has for their life, and that's wonderful. But my observation has been that a lot of them will stay inside and play video games, and that's pretty much it, you know. My kids, homeschoolers, they get called weirdos. Why? Because they're using their imagination. They're free-spirited. Again, if that's weird, okay, I'll take it, you know. I'm thankful for that creativity, and I just can't wait to see what God does with that in my children's lives, because I've allowed them that freedom to grow and explore and create. Just give them that freedom. And that also brings me to, homeschooling gives you the opportunity to nurture your child's gifts and talents. This is one of the most important points that I want to say, because I think it just makes such a difference. If you can figure out early on the gifts that God has placed in your child and make that your focus throughout your whole homeschooling journey. So for my 10-year-old, the Lord told me, actually before he was even born, his name is Garrison Judah. The Lord told me he's going to be a worshiper. And so I just started speaking that on his life. And then as he became like 3 or 4 years old, I had visions of him playing piano. And I knew the Lord told me, nurture this. This is when I really started understanding. I had to hone in on their gifts, and I feel like I missed the point. You know, I was like, oh God, I'm sorry, I missed that with my older son. But God's so full of grace, and I know that I learned all this at his perfect timing. But Garrison now, he's been playing piano for like 5 years, and he's amazing. And if I do nothing else, like officially teaching math and reading and writing and science, if I did nothing else but focus on piano, because I know that's the gift God placed in his heart, in his life, then I know I'm doing everything I need to do. And so I just really encourage you guys to take a look at each child and pray and ask God, what's their gift? What's their gifting? What, you can see it. He's got to give you visions. And He is blessing you with this homeschool time together to focus on that. It's going to make all the difference for your child. I know it. I know it. My youngest son, he is a baker, and he's into arts and craft. I haven't really formally taught him art much. I'm still trying to figure out how, but he has a natural gift for it. So I'm asking the Lord, how do I teach him? Because, I can paint really well, but that's about it. I can't even draw a pretty stick figure. So, God help me. But yes, please remember that. Nurture your child's God-given gifts and talents. Focus on that. Don't get all stressed out over curriculum. They're going to learn naturally. Just as they learn to walk and talk, they're going to learn. And if you instill the love of learning in them, they're going to go even further. You've taken the limits off by doing that. And that was honestly my last point. You give them a love for learning, and they don't see it as drudgery, and they're going to stick to it the rest of their lives. They're going to always be looking for opportunities to learn. They don't even realize what they're doing. It's like they find fun and adventure in it because it wasn't work and memorizing for a test and forgetting about it. So, I'm sorry, that was a lot of pros and cons, but I do think it's important because when you start out, you really you don't know all the pros and cons. So now I'm going to talk about what you must do to get started and when you should start. So it is absolutely necessary to notify the Board of Education with a letter of intent. It typically should be done by this time, like around the second week of August. You should have it done if your child is 6 years old as of August 1st of this school year. So if your child is not 6 by August 1st, I personally would not even worry about sending in a letter of intent unless you have already enrolled them in the system, the public school system. You will need to tell them you're unenrolling your child, and you will need to give them a letter of intent, or they will be counted as truant. You can get in trouble. So I will share with you guys when this is over a copy of my letter of intent. And one little tip for you is to take a picture of it after you've, this is mine. I've already gotten my copy back. There's so many ways you can send it, but I always include 2 copies of my letter, and I put a little Post-it note and say, please sign this and mail it back to me in the self-addressed stamped envelope that I have included. And that's what they do. And they just stamp it received and mail it back to me with their signature on the bottom. A little tip for you is to take a picture of this so it's always on your phone. Because depending on where you live, if you're out and about, it's just kind of like one of those cover yourself kind of things. You never know. I just think the way the world is right now, a lot of people may not understand that it's okay to be out in public during school hours. So, and also if you ever find yourself at a place where you want to ask about a discount, you'll have it right there on your phone. So that's something that I like to do. As I mentioned before, a parent-issued diploma and a transcript is sufficient enough to demonstrate that your child has graduated. GEDs are not usually necessary or even suggested that you do that. You are required to keep attendance and report cards. In Kentucky, you have to have at least 1,062 hours of instruction, and this has to be done over at least 170 days. This is approximately 6 hours each day. And a lot of people freak out when they hear that, like, oh my gosh, 6 hours. No, that does not mean that you have to sit down and do worksheets for 6 hours every day. The 10 minutes that it takes to do math is fine. Read a book, reading, check. Write a grocery list. I'm just very relaxed now in my homeschooling, so that's one thing I personally try to do is to help parents relax. You've got this. I have something for you guys today I'll pass out when this is over, but it's just how I keep attendance. I check mark, done. My kids showed up, they were there. We did life, we did school. So that makes it super easy. You have that for your records. You're supposed to keep a report card according to how your county, how your public school keeps a report card. In most of Kentucky, I believe it's about every 9 weeks, you should have a report card. I honestly don't keep a report card because we learn for mastery. So my kids have A's. Like, we don't learn to memorize tests and get a grade. There are some things that are graded, like my 15-year-old, if he does things online, that's another amazing thing about homeschooling now in 2023. There's so many online curriculums where it's all done for you. You don't have to do anything. So if you're really nervous about high school, you're freaking out about it, don't. Because there's teachers for that online, and you can actually even find some very inexpensive programs. Last year we did Powerhouse Homeschooling. It's $25 a month for my 14-year-old at the time. It's 9th grade. They teach him like 5 subjects. He did it all on his phone. I get progress reports. It's all done for me. So honestly, don't freak out over high schooling if that makes you nervous. That's just one program. There's a lot out there that start around $25, and they can go up to a lot of money, but it just depends. There's accredited and non-accredited, and it depends on the path your child wants to take in life. I do non-accredited right now because my son has no desire to go to college, so I'm not paying the extra money to do all that. So it just might make the difference in getting into a better college, really, is the difference. So that's the things that you must do, and I hope I eased your mind a little bit about that. It's really not that big a deal. It really isn't. One really huge thing I think would help everyone here, if you haven't heard of deschooling, research deschooling. Especially if you attended a public school or your children have attended a public school for any amount of time. I wish I had known that. Deschooling is basically where you take some time to just live your life and kind of erase the public school mindset. And it would just save so much trouble because, like I said in the beginning, when I tried to mimic a public school, it just caused so many problems for me. It stressed me out. I overwhelmed myself. I overwhelmed my children. I became angry. It was not good at all. And if I had learned about deschooling, it would have made all the difference, I believe. It's usually at least a few months, to be honest. It could be a whole year, and it's okay, and I can walk you guys through that personally if you have questions about that. But deschooling, I would highly recommend looking into that. There are all kinds of curriculum. This is a great thing about homeschooling, but it can be overwhelming. But the best thing is to learn your child. How do they learn best? Are they a visual learner? Do they need things to like look at and see? Are they auditory learners? Do they listen well? Do they need to hear it? Are they easily distracted? Do they like hands-on activities? Are they tactile learners? When you figure that out, that's another thing I can help you with, is finding the right curriculum that suits your children. That's super important to their success. Like, if you're going to homeschool, why not set them up for success? Don't do like I did and just pick what your friend is using, because your kids are not your friend's kids. So, next thing I want to talk about are co-ops. There's a lot of different co-ops. We have a lot of opportunities, and I think one thing that's happened here in Lexington is that the homeschool community kind of grew too fast because of COVID. It was all like chill, and you can get into whatever co-op you wanted. And then suddenly, because of COVID, we had this influx of thousands of homeschoolers. And most new homeschoolers believe that you gotta have a co-op, socialization. Well, it has some positive things and some negative things, just like homeschooling itself, but it is not the end-all be-all. Like, it's not, I think a lot of people that are like just stressing out because they can't get into a co-op, I think they're gonna figure out, a lot of them, that you know, that maybe it wasn't for them. It is great for some families, but I'm just saying, like, you don't need a co-op. But you might want one. So there are academic co-ops, and these are co-ops that are very structured, and they teach the core subjects for you. Usually you have like parents that are going to volunteer to teach a class that they're great at teaching, and then you'll do that like on a Monday, and you'll have homework that you'll do the rest of the week, and that's your homeschooling. That's an academic co-op. There's specialized co-ops that teach things like Montessori style education, even nature school and art focused schools, co-ops, just specialized things. There's just a whole bunch of things. You can just Google specialized co-ops. Actually, I have resources for you that I'll hand out to you that'll help you with that. And then there's enrichment co-ops. That was my favorite when I did do co-ops. It's they just help enrich your homeschooling experience. So things like physical education, arts and crafts, and theater, music, field trips, all those kind of things that what I really like about that, like, say you really don't want to teach science, like you're just not good at it. You just don't want to teach it. Well, a lot of times, like, co-ops, they're great for that, because they will have somebody who loves to teach science and get their hands messy and do all those things that you don't want to do, and it's just really fun for your kids. So so they're great for social interaction and making new friendships, but some of the downfalls that I have found, just personally, this is just my experience, a lot of times, especially now, like, a lot of these co-ops that exist were already formed many years ago, and I find a lot of them can become kind of cliquey. Like, people, when you come into a new situation and they already had their group, it's kind of awkward. But they're not all like that. Some of them are great, but that's something you might want to watch out for. If you are already a really busy person, you don't have time to prepare, like, a lot of them require you as parents to stay and even teach a class, or they have different requirements, so you might be required to help out more. They can be very difficult to get into. If you are not already in a co-op for this year, you're probably not gonna have much luck. You're gonna be put on a wait list. So if you want a co-op, you need to go ahead and get on a wait list, because they usually have like fall semester and spring semester, and you're not even guaranteed to get on in the spring, honestly. Like, if the same families just keep going, I think that's what happened, is a lot of new families came in, but there's not enough new co-ops, so it's the same families, same people teaching. There's just not enough space. And the reason that I don't do co-ops is because I love my freedom. It limits my flexibility in my schedule. So I don't want to be tied to having to get up early one day every week. I know it sounds crazy, but honestly, that's why I just enjoy sleeping in when I can and just going about my day however I want to with my kids. And it just becomes a lot when you have like 3 kids in different grades and different things. Like, I don't know, and I don't want to volunteer right now. I do enough. So honestly, that's And that's what that's all about. So does anybody have any questions?
My mom had a question. I think it's about assessments. Hey, Mom.
Sure.
Read it. Hey, Mom, read it. She had a question about assessments.
Well, in Kentucky, we are not required to do assessments. And that's actually one really cool thing about Ohio. They are taking that away too. So it's great. Like there's no, you don't have to show your work. What you do need to do is just keep a little sample of your stuff. Like you don't even have to keep all of it. They don't care to look at a whole book of stuff. They just want samples of your best work kept in a folder. You can even keep pictures on your phone of all the things you do. Like honestly, my family, I don't know if this scares some people when I mention this, but my family leans more towards unschooling. And that's actually just child-led learning. So I actually tried like completely unschooling child-led learning, and what I realized, while that worked really great for us, my kids need a little more structure. So actually I'm excited to go back. We haven't started schooling this year yet, but I'm excited just to do like math and language arts as core curriculum, and the rest is unschooling, just to give us a little bit of structure. That's what I was saying before we started here today. For science, I'm actually using these books. They're called Outschool, and it's just to teach you, it's just fun books about tracking animals and tying knots and camping and nature. And you know, we have to teach science, but we don't have to teach chemistry, physics. We don't have to teach all those little subcategories. Science can be whatever you want it to be. There's no definition of the type of science we have to teach. So another thing I would say, if you're nervous about somebody knocking on your door, you do not have to let them in your house. You can make an appointment. You can talk to me. I have resources here for legal advice. We have lawyers just for the homeschooling community here in Kentucky. One is a Christian group, and one's a Christian group just for Kentucky. And one is HSLDA, and it's on this handout I'm going to give you, but it's for all the states. Like they have all the legal advice. And you can actually pay a fee to become a member, but I personally have never done that because, one, I know my rights as a homeschooler. I'm not scared. I'm not worried about it. But if you have like nosy neighbor that gives you trouble, or you know, disgruntled family member or something, you may want to join HSLDA just to have that to cover yourself, because they will go to bat for you. It's just, I forget what the fee is on. It's not too expensive for that peace of mind if you need it. So yeah, no assessments, just keep a few pages. And one of my little tips too is I don't date my kids' work. Like, I used to like date it all the time, and I'm like, I'd fall behind a little bit from pregnancy or having a child or something, and I was like, oh man, what if they come? And the reality is they're probably not gonna come, but I just stopped dating all this schoolwork so that I have these samples and they're not like dated in case we need some time off for something, you know. And you're not required to, like you can school 6 weeks and take a week off. Some people school year round. Like you can do it however you want. You just have to get your letter of intent in within about 2 weeks of the start of the school year. So, are there any other questions? Yes.
What was the hours again, you said?
The hours, just check it off. Just check it off on your attendance. No. Let me see here.
Because I was just wondering how that worked, like if you did year round, but aren't you supposed to do so many hours within so many days?
Well, I think as long as you say your school year starts here and ends there, it doesn't really matter. Like, there are a lot of people I know that do it year round because they want that year round structure. you know, that may be another positive thing about homeschooling for certain families. You don't have to take a couple months off in the summer, and then when it's time to start, it's just a chaotic mess and your kids have forgotten everything that they've learned. Like, that can help keep structure if that's what you're looking for, to do it year round.
For you and your husband, do you all alternate teaching, or how does and do you know families, how's that usually done?
I mean, sometimes people alternate. I usually just have thrown like the hard stuff that I don't want to do onto my husband. Physics, you know, things like that. I need your help. But for the most part, my husband works, right now he's working 2 jobs, so it's me, but he's happy to step in and help whenever he can. There are also families that both parents work and they still find a way to homeschool, you know. So it's just figuring out what works best for your own particular family. It might take some time to get in the swing of things, but you will find your rhythm. If you're doing this, like, you gotta find your why. Why are you homeschooling? Because I knew that it was actually God ultimately that called me to homeschool. And when I forgot that, that's when everything was a chaotic mess. I even took my kid to tour public schools. I was so frustrated. I'm like, I'm done. And then the Lord's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's not what I said. So if you just remember your why, whether it's God or whatever, like, there's a reason you guys are here. There's a reason you're thinking about it or you've started doing it. I would keep that why somewhere visible so you don't lose track, because you're going to have hard times, but you're going to have hard times whether they're in public school or they're home with you. Like, I'd rather have them home with me and go through it together than to lose that time with my kids. And we all have ups and downs and frustrating days. It doesn't matter. And that's why I created my homeschool group back in 2008. When we moved to Kentucky, I had no support system. The only thing I had, Facebook was pretty new to me back then, pretty new to everybody. And I would post it's such a stressful day. And I'd get all these negative comments, like, just send them to school. I'm like, that's not fair, because you have stressful days with your kids. What about all that homework you have to fit in, and you have no time with them. They're running from here to there, and shower, bed, rinse, repeat. Like, that's not fair. That I can't have a bad day. So I started it's Central Kentucky Homeschool Families. I started that in 2008 because I had no support. And so I found, they say find your tribe. Well, I did that. I stepped out and I found people where, unfortunately, when I made the group, it kind of started as a way just to vent, so people, to people who understood. Because when you're homeschooling, we're going to go through things, and it's so refreshing to just be able to be like, I had a bad day, and they'd be like, me too. But it's okay. Or, they give you advice, like, just go for a walk, change up your routine. There's people in this group that just really helped my homeschool walk, that led me where I am today. So I'm so thankful for that group. It's become such a resource for people that are, whether you're brand new or just like me. I still find things there that I really appreciate, and I try to share a lot of things that are just helpful to the homeschooling community. Does anybody else have any questions?
Did y'all do biblical-based curriculum, or just an ordinary curriculum?
Yeah, I started out doing. They were called PACE. That's they're a very Christian curriculum. That's what the Friends were doing. And it's just workbooks. It was very Christian, but I found it to be very dry. And then we've done Abeka. That's a very popular one. My problem with that is it's just so much work. it kind of leads you into mimicking a public school a lot, because it really was built for private schools. So if you don't know Abeka and you get started with Abeka, like, it can be very overwhelming. It's a lot. But if you do know Abeka, you can kind of like take the meat and spit out the fat. Like, you can make it work, definitely, and it doesn't have to be that crazy, but it is a more expensive curriculum. Honestly, I've done Bob Jones University, that was another one. We've done so many different things, and right now, what I use the most for my little guys is The Good and the Beautiful. It's open and go, and it's very short. They like it. I know some Christians are turned off because the owner, the writer of it, she is Mormon. However, I have been using the books for probably at least 4, maybe 5 years. I've not ever found anything that puts a flag in my spirit or just anything negative. So that's just something that you might caution other Christians about, but for me personally, like, I think I have strong discernment, and for my family, that's what works. So that's what I'm saying. I will never try to shove my curriculum down somebody else's throat. We got to find what works for your family, and so you may not want something that a Mormon has designed, and that's totally understandable. So yeah, some of it's not like my oldest son, what he did, Powerhouse online, that's not Christian, but that's the beauty too. Like, you can still have Bible studies. Like, you can still find, there's Bible curriculum just for Bible study with your kids. So there's a lot out there for that too.
One last question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that it can be, free to on up. Are there any expenses over your time that you say, this was a good investment of, our family's resources in homeschooling?
I'm a laminator queen. Laminate my stuff. The computer, I would say just more the resources than the curriculum. I haven't found a curriculum that I'm like, I don't care if it's $1,000 we're paying for it. But that's just me personally. Like, no. I'm very happy with The Good and the Beautiful, and it's very inexpensive. So that works really well for me. I would say, again, the best investment I've made is paying the piano teacher for lessons and paying for theater club, stuff like that. That's the best investments I've made. Anything else?
Do you have like a list of resources you recommend for families to start now?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a list of stuff. So I also, it was just crazy that Jacqueline contacted me because she asked, would I be willing to speak to a few families? And I was like, wow, that's crazy, because I actually had been praying about offering my resources to people for just a small fee, and kind of just doing like homeschool consultations. So that is something that I am going to offer, and I'm going to start out at $40 per family for about an hour of your time, where I can come into your home if you would like, or we could meet at a neutral location. And my main goal in that is to, if you're stressed and overwhelmed, anxious about homeschooling, I want to help calm you down, because it doesn't have to be like that at all. I want you to enjoy your journey. I want you to focus on the positives and not stress. Don't stress over it. This is not anything to be stressed about. This is a gift that we have. Thank God that we have this gift. And so it shouldn't be stressful. So that's my main goal, but I can help you figure out how your child learns best. I can help you find the curriculum that you want that would work best with your price range, and just, I have been researching curriculum for 17 years. I still, every single year, I have ways, I have secrets, tips, and things that I'm aware of that I'm just always looking for like, is there anything new and exciting? You know, I think we all do that, but I've been doing that for 17 years, so I have a good idea of all the variety of curriculum out there. I could help you figure out what might work best for each of your children. If you need help with homeschool organization, like you're just keeping your records, keeping a binder, how do you want to have their curriculum? How do you want your setup to be? Like I can even help you come in and organize your space for homeschooling. I can do that. I give you all the extras that you want. Field trip logs, reading logs, curriculum trackers. These are not necessarily things that you need, but sometimes they're just fun little extra things that you might not think about. And it's kind of neat to have to look back on, like, what did we do this year, you know? And just extra little helps like that. So that's gonna be, again, $40 for about an hour or so, and that's just gonna cover my time. I'm gonna spend a lot of printer ink and paper on you and gas and my research. Like I'm gonna work for you, so I do think it'll be really worth your time just sitting and helping your family one-on-one. And again, the biggest thing is just easing your anxieties about that. And also, like if you have a friend who's in the same boat and you want to split, like if money is an issue, like I can speak to two of you at the same time and you can each just do $20. I have friends who've done that, so it might not be as in-depth with your individual family, but I do know it'll still be helpful for you. So that's it. I have some things to give you here in a second, but
I did think of a question.
yeah.
Did you ever homeschool with like a toddler, two older children, or one older child? Toddler, how do you work around the child that's not in school yet?
By the grace of God.
By the grace of God.
By the grace of God. I mean, that's again, I wish I had that to do over that time. Yes, I did have that. My boys are 8, 10, 15, and 23, so I definitely had gaps where my oldest, when he was 8, I had the toddler, the newborn. Yeah, he was a newborn. And just, I mean, so I went through that a lot. If I had that time back, I would be kind of where I'm at now. Like, let's just do 10 minutes of reading or math, and let's play with the baby. Let's go outside. Like, you can't get that time back with your kids. And so that's just one thing. People are always stressing about that. How are we gonna do it with the baby? It's okay. Teach your child to read at their own pace and give them the love for learning, and don't worry about it. Because if you do those things, then your older children are going to find things that interest them, and they're going to explore, and they're learning every day. Like, it's just, we don't have to stress about it like we think we do, because that's, again, how our minds have been kind of trained. This is how it has to be. Or you're comparing yourself to somebody that seems to have it all together, or you're comparing yourself to public school. Public school doesn't have babies. It can't be the same. You can't stress yourself out about it. You can, but it's not fun. So yeah, I would just go back, and you get so much more in that 10 minutes of math, 10 minutes of reading a story or whatever, language arts, than they get all day in a public school. And you know, people worry about their kids falling behind, but if you're just comparing yourself to other people, other kids, when you say they're falling behind what? We have to stop learning. We have to unlearn that. Stop comparing ourselves and our children to other families, and stand up and be bold in Christ. Like, this is how my family is doing it. This is great. People, there's a reason Grayson was my last child, because now I have the courage to say, I have the strength and wisdom to say, it's okay that he's not reading. So what? He's enjoying his best life. Even my 15-year-old, I tell him, don't be in a rush to go get a job, because you're gonna have to work the rest of your life, most likely. You know, don't rush it. That's the biggest thing from having an older child, having gone through this. Like, I don't want to rush any of it anymore. Slow down, enjoy the journey. Like, if you ever get stressed, go back to what's my why and come find me. I'll help you.
Hey, Mom, do you have a question for Priscilla? Okay, say it loud.
I appreciate what you said about self-actualization for the young people, that they're allowed to find out who they are and to show their gifts. The teachers are not as aware of them as a parent would be. Another thing about schools is that they would have more time in the bathroom, whereas in schools they're locked away and they can't use the bathroom, and it's really a health hazard in a school. So I appreciate you everything you pointed out. My daughter homeschools. She's in Hampton, Virginia, and she has to do the Iowa assessment every year. She does it every year for her two children. And if she misses it, she has to have someone with a master's degree to test them to see if they're on grade level, to make sure that they are keeping up with what they need to know as school-age children. Personally, I find that to be important because, let's say your child doesn't want to go into the Army or doesn't want to get a job. Maybe your child wants to go to college or wants to be, a pharmacist or something like that. And they might find out when they're in, let's say, 10th grade, and they're behind because, well, they might be behind because they have not had any assessment to let them know if they are on a 10th grade reading level, 10th grade level, and they don't have what they need to go into a college, or they're playing catch up. So that is a concern that they do not have any type of assessment to make sure they're on par with the other students. That's a concern that I guess I would have as a parent.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
What is your question, Mom?
That's my question.
Well, she's just saying that, so some states, they are required to test and have assessments so they can tell like where the child is in relation to the public school students. And she's concerned that for states like Kentucky, if they don't do assessments, like how do you know if they're like not up to standards or whatever? So if they want to go in the military or go into college or anything like that, it's kind of concerning to her about that. What I would say to that is that if you research homeschooling, like they're the ones that do the assessments, I don't think it's going to be much different for us who don't do the assessments. Like, we are learning so much, and homeschoolers actually rank, their ratings are way above public schoolers much of the time in much of these areas. Like, you can do the research, it's out there. Like, people think that they're not going to be ready, they're not educated, but if your child desires to be like a physicist or something, they're going to be putting in the work. Like, honestly, they're probably going to be more prepared than those who are not homeschooled, because they can take all their everything in them, that's what I'm saying, and focus on what they want to become. And homeschoolers, that's what I was saying about homeschoolers, like they are mostly self-driven, highly motivated individuals that they're going to do the work, like they know. And like, for me personally, I don't ever worry that my kids are not going to be able to meet the standards or whatever, because if you give them that love for learning and they have something their mind is set on becoming, they're going to do it. Even if they have to take extra time when they're 18, 19, 20 years old and figure it out then, they can do it. There's nothing that says that you can't catch up, afterward if you want to do that. I do know of homeschoolers, many homeschoolers that have done that. Like, decide, I want to do this. Well, they know you've given them the tools, they know how to find the information, they know what they have to do to go get that degree or enter the Army or whatever it is they want to do, they're going to do it. Like, I don't stress about that either, because that's our goal as a parent. Like, just help them, guide them into whatever they want to be, and they'll get there. They'll get there, so.
I have a question. How do you know if you should, well, I'm just wondering your perspective. Co-op versus the private lessons for piano. For your thinking and for you as a parent, how did you know where would be the best use of money and time for your family? Private or co-ops?
I mean, I would just pray about that, because I think the Lord will lead you to whatever's best for your family. For me, I just like somebody coming to my house 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I've already done many things for the day. It just works best for me. And like my youngest child, he doesn't, like, he gets anxious a little bit around a bunch of kids. So for him personally, it's not good to take him out into a group of kids. Like, he does have that on Sunday mornings. He does get plenty of interaction and other places with other kids. But for stuff like I was actually having this conversation with him this morning about art. Like, how are we going to teach you art? Because I'm not the greatest artist, and he gets overwhelmed with groups of kids when he told me he knows it's too much of a distraction for him when there's other kids around. So I will either be looking for a private artist or art teacher to come out and teach him, or we'll do YouTube. Whatever the Lord leads, I will do with him. And I just think that's the greatest thing. Like, you can do either. You can try it and see what works for you. Like, sometimes it just takes stepping out and trying things and seeing if it doesn't work, it's okay. And let me tell you, there's going to be a lot of things that just don't work. And the biggest mistake you can make when that happens is to keep going forward with something that's not working. The curriculum is not working out. Why? I know you paid the money for it. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? You can stop wherever you're at, start over, reset. It's not worth it. There's no amount of money that's worth your family stressing out because what you bought is not working out. Sell it. There's plenty of people that'll buy it. So, and that's what I would say to that.
Is Facebook the best place to find used curriculum?
Yeah, I actually have another group that I'm trying to, it's just not very active, but you're welcome to post in my group if anybody has a certain curriculum that you're looking for. But there is another group. I didn't even list that on here because I need to work at getting that more active. But it is, I think it's Central Kentucky Educational Buy-Sell Trade page on Facebook. And that's for anybody. But I just need some helpers. So yeah, feel free to go on there and ask or post things for sale. My focus has really just been on what I want to do. I want to do more like field trips and stuff. So we have an events page for that. Central Kentucky Homeschool Families events page. It's a subgroup of the main page. But I have this grand goal of doing a field trip every single week. And guess what? That counts as a whole day of school. So I know it's a really big goal, and my parents' health is not so great right now. So just have to see what the future holds. But I know a lot of people want to do field trips, and I know I can get some volunteers to fill in when they just need some guidance. So that's something really, really cool about that page. You can post your own outings. You can you can even say, I'm going to Chick-fil-A, who wants to meet me? I'm going to the park, who wants to meet me? It can be sporadic, or it can be planned ahead of time, just field trip to a museum or a tour of Ale 8 or just the local things that we have here to tour. Or even it can be 3 hours from here. Some people are really into that. I don't like driving that much, but if it's worth it, I might, So, any other questions?
I just wanted to share with you all So the Good and the Beautiful, I've been looking at that for a while, but they'll do free downloads of like a whole curriculum. So I don't know, I find that really affordable to see if it works for you all since it's free. And then like if it doesn't, then you can pay for the next thing with some other place. But you can like today I downloaded his kindergarten math and language arts, and it downloads straight to your computer. Like the math one was 120 lessons for the whole year, and you just see if it works, and if it doesn't, then you're not out anything, until you print something.
Right.
You can try something different if it didn't work, if it's not a good fit, but at least it's free to download that.
I didn't know those were free. I know when you mentioned Good and the Beautiful months ago, they looked on there and they had like the books that you could look at for free. So we started looking at those right now.
Yeah, so you can download, it looked like to me like it just downloaded as a PDF and then you can print it as you need it. Or if you laminate, like I was thinking about laminating that. And my husband was like, you need a lot of lamination paper, but you can
You'll use it.
You can make the workbook. That's the difference. Instead of them putting it together for you, you can just print it and laminate it.
But it's pretty affordable too, like if you do decide to use it. And that's what we use, so you're welcome to look through our books too, for language arts and math. That's what we use, is the Good and the Beautiful. So that's what also, like I have this dream of starting a nonprofit place for homeschooling resources, and that's one of my visions of that place, is to have a variety of curriculum for parents to come look at, because I like to get my hands on stuff, to flip through it, and that's hard to come by these days. Really the best thing, if you want to do that, in April there's the Great Ohio Convention, the Great Homeschool Convention, in Ohio, in Cincinnati. And it is all Christian based, and it's at the Duke Energy Center, and it is massive. It is overwhelming. That's why I stopped going. But I mean, you can get your hands on the books and flip through and see what it's like and talk to the people there representing the company. So that's kind of neat. Honestly, I go on there. That's one of my tips. I go on the Great Homeschool Convention website, and you can look at a list of the vendors that are there. And so, I mean, it's highly overwhelming, but yes, I've done this year after year just because I want to see what's out there. I'll go through, and you can click on each vendor and it opens up their webpage, and it helps me just do some research on companies that I've never heard of, or, so, yeah. Is that it?
I just have my last question.
Yeah.
Is what are your favorite places to get the homeschool discounts? Was it the ones that you listed, the Ripley, Dollywood? Are those the ones that you said are your favorite?
I mean, yeah, it's a huge discount. It really is. So for like Dollywood, there's 7 of us going, and it's like $340 for 7 of us now Dollywood, it's like homeschool days. You have to do it, so you have to like do your research, because some companies it's like certain times of the year. Other companies it's all the time. So Ripley's attractions are all the time. You just have to have your letter of intent, and it's a great discount. Like I don't remember, but I've been with my whole family, and it was just crazy inexpensive. It's great. Like even the Ripley's Believe It or Not, the aquarium, I think even one of the ride things, it's like a great discount. Yeah. It never hurts to ask, do you take a homeschool discount? Teacher discount, I would say that.
Yeah, I didn't know it's a teacher discount.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for coming, and I'll have like a little sheet to sign if you would like to, like if you think you might be interested in one-on-one consultations, just so I have your information. I'm not going to start doing that until September, because I have to get my stuff together myself for my 3 boys and our vacation, and some things to take care of, but I will be starting that in September. I'm happy to just answer more questions you might have, but if you feel like you just need a little more in any area for homeschooling, like I'd love to help you out, and you can just sign that, and I'll give you some information here in just a minute. So thank you guys.
Can you tell us about your book?
My book, I did bring my book. I actually I have 2 books. The first one my husband and I wrote a few years ago. It's just a children's book called Push-Ups and Crunches. It's just a fun little book. It was born because my husband loves to exercise, like embarrassing me, like doing push-ups on the sidewalk kind of stuff in public. And he's like, I don't know, he just came to me one day and he's like, hey, what if we wrote a story that was kind of like Green Eggs and Ham, but it was about push-ups and crunches. So I was like, get away, I got it, I got this. And I actually, like, God just downloaded the words to me. I wrote this book in like 40 minutes. And then it took like 18 months to get it published because we didn't know what we were doing. But so we have that. And then the biggest part of my story actually is not homeschooling, but it's about how God has freed me from a life crippled with anxiety and fear. I can't believe the fearful life that I lived. Looking back, it's just absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, the heartbreaking thing for me is that is a lot of people's everyday norm. How I lived is how much of the world is living now. And so the Lord, he told me I was going to write books to free people. And this book, it's called Uprooting Fear, How to Flourish Beyond Anxiety and Depression. This is my story of how he took me from that crippling life, anxiety, fear, and often depression. It's like a vicious cycle that you find yourself in. And he freed me at the beginning of the pandemic, which was when you know that it had to be God. Because I wasn't even showing up at church because I was afraid of the flu. And then we had COVID, and I was one of the first people there. My pastor was like, what are you doing here? Seriously. So, I mean, this is my heart. Homeschooling is my heart too, but this is like people's freedom. Like, if you can find freedom from those things that have held you back in other areas of life, it's going to make homeschooling actually so much more freeing and easy and joyful for you. Like, honestly, this is part of why I struggled to homeschool, and I was an angry mom because I was living in fear. And I didn't have the courage to stand up to the people that were like, you know, your kids need to go to public school. But God gave me courage, and so that's just part of my story too. So I'm thankful that he's using me, and I'm so thankful to be free and living just a blessed, free life. It changes everything. So I would have never done this, especially. Like, I was very timid. I was scared. I was living a scared life. So to do this, honestly, it's just how far God has brought me, if you guys only knew. So he can do that for anybody that's suffering with fear and anxiety, depression. Like, if he did it for me, he did do it for me, so he can definitely do it for anybody. And it will change it's changed everything about my life. And homeschooling, that's just like a bonus. You know, I get to enjoy my kids now. I didn't really enjoy them then. I'm honest with you. Like, I didn't enjoy it because I was depressed. Was a huge part of it. So yeah, I'm just thankful and blessed. Well, thank you all so much again for coming. I hope this was helpful and encouraging. That's why I did it. Praise the Lord. Yes.
So, like my family, like me, Cody, and Easton, like, we're kind of like the black sheep of our family with faith and doing anything. So, like, how do you go about those hard conversations when, your blood family that tries to put in an input that is just, they're not even in the same,
Well,
area
yeah.
walk with their faith because they don't live that life. Like, how do you even have those conversations? Like, how do you go about that?
Sometimes you don't have a conversation because you're just wasting your breath, honestly. It's another thing I would pray about, and I have been there. I'm the first one in my entire family that started homeschooling, and they all thought I was failing my kids, and everything was negative. I have a huge family. My dad's the oldest of 12, and my mom, she had like 7 siblings, and everybody was so negative about it. And that's why I created the group too, that I have on Facebook, again, because I had no support. But facing them, I just prayed for them. I prayed that God would give me the right words, and I would be very cautious saying anything unless the Lord tells you to say something. Because the best thing that I've done is just, you can't argue with those people. They don't understand. They're not going to understand until God does something to make them understand. And God did that. So, like my father, he was so negative about it. My own dad, and it just hurt, He made me feel like I was ruining my kids. Until one year, he went with me to the Great Homeschool Convention in Ohio. And he got talking to a lady at the concessions, and they were looking around, and they said, I've never seen such a large group of children in one area that's so well behaved. And my dad still talks about that day when he talked to that woman. Like, it changed everything for my dad. He still sometimes, made comments that I was like, whatever, Dad. Like, I learned not to argue back because it's not going to do anybody any good. What I've learned is that time will show them, look, my kid's fine. I mean, we're 17 years in. I'm like, your opinion's not going to change how I live my life with my family. My husband and I are one in agreement. You raised us, let me raise my kids. I'd just be kind, loving. They don't have to understand. That's honestly one of the greatest things I've learned is that's their problem. Don't let it become your problem. Let it go. Don't let it affect your life. You're doing what God wants you to do. And that's enough to get you through anybody else's opinions. That's what got me through it. I'm just like, it's their problem. I'm good. Don't let them steal your joy. I mean, again, these are things that I have learned. I have walked through that, certainly, myself. If I had it to do over, I'd be like, okay, Dad. Bless you. Just go on about my life. Don't let it, I cried. I wore myself out, worried about what everybody else thought, because this is crazy, the crazy homeschool lady, what is she doing? Who is she to teach her kids? You have a degree, blah, blah, blah. Well, have you been in public schools this year? I don't even have to go in them to see, they're failing our children. If you want to argue with them, I could probably help you come up with some good things that, that are actually happening in our public schools.
It's like, even when he's only 5, but even when he was 2, they just wanted to throw their input. Oh, he needs to be in therapy. He's not talking, and I was like, give it time. Boys usually don't talk as quick as girls do, and I was the girl, so they were just going over me, and it was just so frustrating, having those difficult conversations with. I feel like they're just shoving it in my face. Oh, he's gonna be socially weird.
Yeah.
And he was only 2 at the time, and every year they're like, have you put him in public school? And I'm like, he's 5.
There's a Christian book, I think it's called Boundaries. I think you need to pray about setting some boundaries with those kind of people. You can set that. You're an adult. That's your child. And sometimes I would recommend looking into that book, and because it helped me too. Just learn sometimes you have to put boundaries up to protect your family, to protect your mind. It's hard when it's your own parents, or, you know, I have been there, but that's not, I wish I knew about that book, and just, I wish I had the courage and boldness then to just be like, look, if you continue to do this, like, you know, you can set boundaries. You're giving them the right to steal your peace. You can't keep offering that to all these people who aren't living your life. If this is your life, and you know you're living it right, you're living it for Christ, you're doing what he put on your heart to do, like, you're just allowing them to have your peace robbed. And so you might have to have a difficult conversation and set boundaries. Yeah, I wish I had done that earlier, and just say, no, you're not gonna do this to me anymore. Like, it's toxic. Anyway, you don't tell other people how they live their lives. That's just something we all need to learn. Like, you know, you can certainly pray for people if you think they're not doing, but you can't force somebody to live the way you think is right. So, does that help?
Family's just tough whenever you feel like you're like the black sheep, because your family is just a line of all these generational curses, and then you're breaking all these chains off, and it's like hard to like not feel that heaviness, you know?
Yeah.
You know, they're all around you, and it's not the same for us.
Yeah.
You know?
Pray for boldness over you and Cody, because it really changes everything. When you get the courage, you don't have those thoughts like, it doesn't even affect you anymore. It's really cool when other people's opinions don't make a difference in your peace anymore. So, like, that's just another part of my story. Like, I don't do that anymore. I'm not a people pleaser, because that's what it is. It's like you're allowing them to steal your peace. And this is a time when it should be so joyful. This is your time with your son. Nobody should be making you feel bad for having more time with your son. We don't know what tomorrow holds. What do you say to them? I mean, God forbid something happens to our children, you know? What do you say to them then? That'd be hard. We don't know, so we don't take a day for granted. And that's why, you know, I really want to help everybody just relax. Because what's most important? Yep.
Henry Cloud is the
Henry Cloud, yes. Boundaries. Thank you.
I'm gonna have to get that.
Yep. Can I let you borrow mine? Actually, I might let you have it because I'm good now. Praise God. Yes. Good now? All right, thank you, Jesus. Thank you all so much. Sit this here. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's fine.
6th of January, so would I still have to sign him up?
Have you done anything yet? No.